And thank you for joining us on The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side, and our number 844-236-6010. We love hearing from you on The Bright Side, 844-236-6010. If you have questions, success stories you'd like to share, if you have, if you're dealing with home lockdown or shelter in place or whatever they call it. I love the term lockdown. It's like jail. That's exactly what lockdown comes from, prison. It's prison lingo. Anyway, lockdown, shelter in place, you're stuck in the house. How are you dealing with all of this craziness that's out there? I'd love to hear from you. 844-236-6010. If you want to purchase longevity products, please go to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com, or call 866-735-2470. If you've thought about joining or being part of a home-based business program in the past, now is the golden opportunity. If you want to make some money in your spare time, if you want to make some money working out of the home, if you want to help people, if you want to get into the world of nutrition, 844-236-6010 is the number for the Longevity Business Opportunity Team, the Brightside Ben team, 866-735-2470, 866-735-2470, or head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. We've got blog stories, news stories, blog posts, and videos at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to take a look at our Truth Skin Health products at truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com. Our number 844-236-6010, and we will get your calls in our next segment. We've got Virginia Landmesser from NES, who is an NES bioenergetics practitioner. I have been personally studying NES for many years. I've quoted from the NES classic book, Decoding the Human Body Field, many times on this program. It's about the idea that information is medicine. Information comes from the word inform. That is, when something takes a shape, when something is in a form. The best medicine is going to be substances that are just barely taking a shape. Once they take a shape, they become chemistry. And chemistry is not the best medicine. Information is the best medicine because it is the closest to the invisible world where everything comes from. Information is, in fact, physicists tell us today that information theory, in information theory, that everything comes from information. Information is where everything starts. And if you want to be powerful in the world of medicine and in the world of healing, you want to get to where everything starts. Everything starts at the level of information. This is such a powerful idea. That's what the placebo effect is about. The placebo effect is the idea that nothing can cause something. And of course, the nothing is not nothing. It's really information. They call it nothing because they don't recognize it. I love how when they test drugs, they filter out the placebo effect. If you take a drug and you compare it to a sugar pill, and the doctor knows that that the patient's getting a sugar pill, or if the patient knows he's getting a sugar pill, that will affect the results. That's called the placebo effect. When you know something and it affects your results. When you have information about something and it affects your results. Of course, drug companies can't have that, so they filter it out because they want to know how their poison works. I say, why don't we work with information? Why don't we work with the fundamental place where everything starts, which is, as we know today, information. NES calls itself Energy for Life. And I actually don't even know what the heck NES stands for. But the book that I've been reading for many years is called Decoding the Human Body Field. And if you like this kind of stuff, it's an amazing, amazing, amazing book that I refer back to. I've been reading it for almost 15 years now, and I refer back to it all the time. Peter Fraser, F-R-A-S-E-R, and Harry Massey, M-A-S-S-E-Y, are the authors. And the founders of NES as well. We'll talk to Virginia about how you practice NES and how she practices NES for healing. Bottom of the hour, we'll get your calls next segment, 844-236-6010. All right, so we're dealing with all of this craziness, and yesterday we started talking about how we can handle some of this craziness from a mental perspective. And we talked about beliefs, the idea of beliefs. Beliefs come from the root word to love. Belief. Belief is beloved. L-I-E-F is German for love, actually, or Germanic for love. Belief equals be love, and we love our beliefs. They may not be right, they may not be accurate, they may not be helpful, but they're ours, just like our kids. Our kids might not be great, but they're our kids, and same way with our beliefs. And we don't like to be challenged at the level of beliefs. Nonetheless, we can't progress if we don't always challenge our beliefs. And this is where old man's disease comes from, as I've talked about in the past. Old man's disease is when you know everything. You don't have to be old and you don't have to be a man. You could be young and you could be a woman. You have old man's disease. I just first noticed it in my dad's. I call it old man's disease. You know everything. You know what everything is. You believe, your beliefs are the only way things are. I told you the story a couple weeks ago. Some guy called me up because he didn't like what I said on Coast to Coast on George Norrie. He reported me to the CDC. He says to me, he left a message. He said, there's now a letter being sent to the CDC because you said that vaccines, that you would never take a vaccine. And so I talked to him, nice guy, but he believes his own BS. He believes that you need to be vaccinated because he grew up during the polio days. He grew up and there's a lot of controversy. I didn't want to get into it with this guy, but there's a lot of controversy about this polio vaccine, if indeed it was the polio vaccine that ended polio. Nonetheless, that was his reality. That was his belief. His belief was vaccines are good. Government says you take vaccines, you take vaccines. And don't ever say anything against that. This is called believing your own BS. Loving your own beliefs. Being in love with your own beliefs. If we want to be honest, if we want to live honestly about our ideas and about our content, about our concepts of what's true, we should talk about what we love, not what we believe. We should talk about what we're comfortable with, not what's true, I should say. We should talk about what we love, not what's true. We should talk about what we're comfortable with, not what's true. We don't know what's true. That's why you always want to test. A scientist always tests his hypothesis. Always test. Always test your belief systems. Always test what you know what's true. And by the way, a concept's not true either. We don't really know what's true. We just know what works. That's the operative question. What works? Does it work for you? And this is where the idea of epistemology comes in that we talked about yesterday. Epistemology, big word, I know, but it's just the study of knowledge, how we know things. How do we know things? Think about all the things you know. Write it down on a piece of paper. How do you know things? Most of what we know comes from somebody else. It comes from a third party. It comes from something that is between what happened and you. It's in the middle. That's what the word media comes from. Media comes from the word middle. The media puts itself in the middle. So if you can't see something, the media will see it, and then it'll tell you what's happening. That doesn't sound like a good recipe for really ascertaining what's true or what works when you have somebody else telling you. So the point being, how do we know what we know? I've got a friend, I've talked about him before, and he puts on Facebook every day how many people are going to die and what the curve is like and what the medical world is telling him. And none of it he knows. He's just going by what he's told, but he believes it's true. And he's completely freaked out. And how many people out there, present company excluded, are freaked out because of what they know? I'm doing air quotes here. Because of what they know or because of what they've been told. All right, 844-236-6010 is our number. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben, and you're listening to The Bright Side. Thank you for being here. We've got Virginia Landmesser coming up at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk about bioenergetics, NES, the idea that information is medicine, the idea that there's a physics nature that transcends biology, that physics comes before chemistry. We talk about that on this program all the time. But remember, we live in a chemocentric world where everything's about chemistry. Everything's about the molecule. And I'm a lover of the molecule, but fundamentally, the molecule is only exists because of physics, because of, get this, quantum physics. Quantum physics underlies the molecule. And while we talk about vitamins, minerals, and atoms, elements, I should say, and atoms, and all kinds of stuff at the level of chemistry, and also at the level of clinic, level of the body, biology, if you will, fundamentally everything is quantum physics, and quantum. That's one of the reason I fell in love with NES, and is because it recognizes the quantum nature of the clinical process, or of things that show up clinically. The quantum nature of blood pressure problems, the quantum nature of pain, the quantum nature of neurological issues. Doctors don't do that. Nutritionists don't even do that. Alternative practitioners rarely do that. Yet we know everything is about frequency. There's a really cool science called cymatics, by the way. Cymatics. Cymatics is the science of how sound creates shape. In the beginning there was the word. The word is a sound. Sound creates shape. What is sound? But frequency. Sound is a lower frequency than electromagnetic frequencies, but nonetheless, it's frequencies. Everything's frequencies. It's all about frequencies. And if that sounds new age and hippy-dippy, so be it. But if you want to be fundamentally healthy, you've got to understand what's really happening. Not just your beliefs, but what's really happening. Ultimately, everything, we don't really know what's happening, but as close as you can get to what's really happening. This is what, when we don't do that, when we look just clinically, that allows us to do crazy things, idiotic things, really, like poison our heart to get ourselves healthier. When we don't understand what's really happening, we will take a beta blocker or a calcium channel blocker. When we don't understand what's really happening, we're going to get vaccinated. When we don't understand what's really happening, we're going to run around with a mask on our face because we think we're not going to get the virus because we got to mask the virus. I love it. The virus. Like a monster. The virus. The virus. When we don't understand what's happening, we'll fall prey to all of the noise and nonsense that's going on in the world when we don't understand what's happening. How do you understand what's happening? You ask questions. Always, always, always ask questions. Do not just fall into allowing your behavior to be the end result of something you heard on the news or something your friend told you. Become a scientist in your life. Scientists do not just do things because their friends told them it was so. They test, they hypothesize, they experiment, they go into the laboratory. Well, we're all in a laboratory. It's called life. Life is our laboratory, and we are, as scientists, experimenting. And you want to examine every little thing in your life like a scientist examines a bug, like an etymologist, I think that's the right word, or entomologist, excuse me, like an entomologist studies an insect. He puts it under the magnifying glass or the microscope, and he looks really closely. And you see all kinds of things. You see how the wings are constructed. You see that the insect is not just this ugly, scary, creepy thing, but actually a thing of beauty when you examine and ask questions. And always, always, always dig deep. Pixelate, break things down. One of my all-time favorite words is deconstruct. Deconstruct your life. Deconstruct your thoughts. Deconstruct your beliefs. Go back to where you came from. Everything comes from someplace. This is why energetics is so important in understanding the quantum nature of reality and of the body and of health and of chemistry, and the quantum nature of everything is so important because it's where things come from. If you want to be powerful in the body and you want to be powerful in life, go to where things come from, not to where you see them. This is the craziness of the modern medical model, is we go to where we see, not to where they came from. Even though we're in the quantum age today, we know that things come from someplace, we still go to the doctor and have ourselves stitched up. I talked to a lady yesterday, whose dad had a pig vessel stuck in his heart, cow vessel, cow tissue, and now he's got inflammation. He's got all kinds of an immune response against this cow tissue. The cow tissue is deteriorating. It was supposed to last 10 years, the cow tissue. It only lasted 5 years. Because we didn't go back to where the problem was. The problem was underneath the heart issue. It was in the diabetes or the blood sugar problems. It was in the digestive system. And even the blood sugar problems, if you really want to get into it, and the digestive problems ultimately involve electrical energy, involve quantum energy. You don't need to necessarily go there, but you need to understand it, how it's happening. That way you'll understand how vitamins work. That way you'll understand how minerals work. That way you'll understand how probiotics and good bacteria and food in general works. So going back, taking a step back is really important if you're going to change your behavior in a positive direction when it comes to how life shows up. Got Virginia Messer coming up, bottom of the hour, and we'll take your calls. Don't forget, 844-236-6010, 844-236-6010. It's the latest and greatest in terms of this COVID thing is Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's the godfather of the COVID disaster. I don't know what you call it, but he's basically totally a representative of the response to this thing. He says we should never shake hands again. We should never shake hands again. After this thing happens, we should never shake hands again. This is the kind of craziness that the medical model wants us to do. It wants to save us by keeping us from shaking hands. Yet we know that the body can handle pretty much a lot. It can handle a lot of microbial attack. It can handle a lot of viral attack. It can handle a lot of bacterial attack. It does it most of the time. And while we're at it, most viruses and most bacteria are our friends. or at least they're neutral. It's relatively rare that an invader can invade into the body and create havoc. And as far as creating havoc goes, yes, death and pneumonia are not a good thing. But listen, we're talking about, relatively speaking, in terms of numbers, not a lot, especially compared to other health challenges, like the flu, for example. I have yet to hear people saying this is not the flu, blah, 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 it's not the flu. Why? Is it because it's worse than the flu? Why is this not the flu? It's because the symptoms are more severe than the flu? Because I don't know that. I don't know the death rates are more severe than the flu. All of this comes about, all of this fear-mongering comes about because we are receptive to it, because we don't examine our beliefs. We don't examine how we know things. We don't examine how they know things, how anybody knows things. There's three kinds of lies. There's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. And you never, ever, ever want to draw conclusions from statistics. At best, they are guidelines. But at any given moment, an individual point is not subject to statistics. That's the great hidden flaw. At any given point, the individual, what happens at the level of the individual, is not subject to statistical analysis. And we are individuals. And that's the key right there, folks. That's the key to understanding how to reverse disease. That's the key to understand how to heal the healing process. That's the key to understanding how to be liberated from what they're telling you are your risks. How to be free from that when you understand your nature as an individual to control the way your biochemistry and your body show up. All right, Virginia Landmesser coming up at the bottom of the hour. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll be back on the bright side right after this. On the bright side, thank you for being here, friends. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific, 10 to 11 Central, 24/7 on the archive page at brightsideben.com. You'll find longevity products and the business opportunity at brightsideben.com. Also pharmacistben.com and criticalhealthnews.com. Got blog posts, news, stories, videos. Our moments of truth are up at criticalhealthnews.com. Every day I do a moment of truth. If you're interested in checking those out, you can go to criticalhealthnews.com. Those post every month, maybe every couple weeks or so. If you want to check them out daily, go to our Facebook page, The Bright Side with Pharmacist Ben. All right, I am very excited to have our guest on. Virginia Landmesser is the owner of Everlasting Health and Wellness, and she is a educator, I suppose you'd say, about something called NES, which is based on a book by Peter Fraser and Harry Massey called Decoding the Human Body Field that I have personally been reading for close to 15 years now. And I say reading because I'm always reading it. It's like a reference. It's all dog-eared and it's got all kinds of markers on it. It's just one of the most succinct and well-stated books that I've ever read on this idea that we talk about all the time on this program, that there is a quantum physical nature that underlies how things show up biologically and clinically. Please welcome to the bright side, Virginia Landmesser. Hello, Virginia.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me.
Yes, nice to talk to you. Just real briefly, we have a mutual friend, and he was talking to me one day, and he said, have you heard of this thing called NES? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Decoding the Human Body Field? Said, yeah, and he said, you got to talk to Virginia. So we had a conversation. I said, I wanted you to come on the radio program and present a layperson, because you're not, like you told me earlier, you said you're not a scientist, but you're a layperson. I want to hear the layperson's take on all of this kind of seemingly woo-woo, but it's not really woo-woo. It's very, very high-tech stuff, but it's, yeah, it's really high-tech stuff. And it's got but it has a clinical side to it. Even if you don't understand or you don't even want to understand that part of it, has a clinical side to it, and you as a layperson are exquisitely qualified to talk about it that way. But before you even get started in that, what the heck does NES stand for?
Well, I know that they call it the NES Bioenergetics Wellness System.
What is the NES?
Really, the NES part, I'm not quite sure what it stands for. I haven't researched that like I researched Beamer and a lot of other mechanisms and devices and things like that. But I do know, from just testing and on not only myself but family members, that luckily it works. Finally, finding something that works for people.
Now, you mentioned Beamer, and I had a gal on. I've had the Beamer people on, and I had another gal on who has a device like a Beamer. Tell us real briefly about the Beamer and how it compares to what you guys are doing.
Well, that one I would say is not as specific. It's more like the Earth's resonance and Schumann resonance in general. It's just more of a generalized frequency, healing frequency that's being put into the body to stimulate oxygenation, circulation, and tissue regeneration of, your cells, basically, and send good messages. Now, with Nest, it's more in-depth, it's more specific, and that's, they both definitely work well together. I would have to say that whenever I was treating a doctor who works in psychotherapy, and she was going to dowser meetings, and so that's how I kind of got connected with her, and so she understands a lot more than most layman people would as well. I would see her scans, and they were wonderful, and I thought that it was just because she was on a very enlightened spiritual path and very educated, and she said, no, I have a Beamer. And so that's when things clicked in that aspect, because many times working with Nest, when I would talk with engineers, they didn't understand the Nest because it was not as out there technology-wise. It's a bit more expensive, absolutely, to use, and for a lot of people as well. And so any engineers or people that worked in physics and understood or had an understanding of that would ask me if I knew about the Beamer. And so I had heard of it and then had started doing research, but when I finally had started seeing the scans with Nest for this particular doctor and the results, and it was ironic, too, because I was pregnant at the time, and I was up to try it. She had said, yeah, come try it. Basically, I tried it on Monday and purchased one on Friday. We'll put it like that, because I definitely noticed a big difference. And so I think that they even work well together, honestly. So.
Now, when you say more specific, are you talking about specific frequencies for specific kinds of illnesses? Is that what you mean by specificity?
Yes, and really it's just a generalization, because ironically, and it's not even ironic, it is what it is, our emotions are what are, in our spiritual nature, are what are creating defects and distortions in our own healing processes. Because basically your emotional immunity and your feelings of being vulnerable or protected, or the discernment, proper boundaries, things like that are what I'm finding with working with Nest, which are just very profound in someone's own personal growth and healing. And, I personally had gotten to a plateau on my own, because I realized when I was working with nutritionists and a naturopathic doctor that definitely I could make shifts on my own using proper diet, proper nutrition, proper supplementation. And I definitely noticed the detoxifying effects and the regenerational effects, but I reached a plateau which showed that it was me basically getting in the way of my body's own healing processes. And so even before the Nest, I had started making personal changes and, going to guided therapy sessions and things to just really help to take myself out of the way of my own healing process. But I definitely, with the type of childhood I had, because a lot of trauma and shock causes a lot of this stuff, and with the type of childhood that I had, and then also some of the bad relationships that I was involved in, had caused a lot of issues to be imprinted within my body field and my brainstem hologram. And they've done research that shows that with people that have cancer or serious illnesses, scientists have discovered a calcification. And it's basically your body's own protection mode and method, to a crystallization of tissue in the brainstem that basically creates these disease patterns. Because basically what we're talking about are patterns not only in nature for healing or disease, but also within ourselves.
Okay, so hang on. You said so much stuff there. First of all, aging itself is fibrosis and calcification and an ossification, a locking in kind of thing. I call it old man's disease, by the way, mentally, when we have the same ideas all the time. We don't think new ideas, but the body manifests that itself with ossification or calcification or hardening. And this underlies all aging and all disease, all of it. ALL, 100%. So, which you said some powerful stuff there. That's number one. Then the second thing is you talk about imprinting. And we got to take a break, but I want you to talk about that when we come back, about this imprinting the body field, how you do that. And then I want you to tell us exactly how, all this stuff's great theory. I love it. I absolutely love it. I talk about it all the time. I believe in it. I live with it. I work with it. But I want you to tell us how we can turn this into something practical, like how we can actually have something in our hands that will allow us to take advantage of these somewhat abstract ideas. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back after this. Okay, we're back on The Bright Side talking to Virginia Landmesser about NES. Virginia, before we went to break, you're talking about imprinting. I love that idea of imprinting. So and then you said the body field. So there's a way that our actions have an effect on the field that's permanent, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And this is what you guys are working with at that level. That seems to me like one of the most fundamental levels. There's more fundamental levels probably, but it's pretty close to being fundamental to how reality or the material world is created. Are you familiar with this idea of morphogenic fields? How fingers and toes and hands and arms in the embryo take shape based on you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so I want everybody to know this is accepted science. This is not crazy out there, woo-woo. This is actually hardcore science, the idea that there's a field that gets imprinted. Not necessarily what you're talking about, Virginia, how it gets negatively affected. No, they don't talk about that. They talk about a morphogenic field as a template through which the body shape takes form inside the embryo.
So that you don't have two right arms or two right feet. They basically created
shape.
Opposites and specifics, and so that it correlates together, like a song and a
right. But they don't, like a hand in glove,
Yeah.
But they don't talk about it from a negative sense. They don't talk about it like that's how cancer shows up, or how pain shows up, or how emotional disturbances show up. Which I find you're taking this. Or birth defects for that matter. But you're taking you can't really do anything about a birth defect. But what you're doing is you're manipulating the field, I think. Is this what NES does? Is it works at that level, at the level of the field?
Actually correcting the field because it's already been manipulated and it's distorted. Because any pattern of illness is coming directly from the individual and either their environment, their lack of nutrition, or, usually it's a combination of things. Environment, lack of nutrition, and environment is not only just toxins, but it can be emotional situations that affect people on the spiritual level that create situations which we would call emotional oscillators. And what those are emotional tape loops, self-talk. Like when we talk to people, like say our children, and we tell them to be kind, or we tell them to love themselves, which is probably not even a dialogue that's very common within parents and children, honestly. And that's part of the problem is the fact that, and even the dialogue that we have with ourselves, we tend to be more critical than loving. And that's something that we've been taught. And by design, mind you, of course, because that would correct a lot of these issues just alone, is just being more loving, because what we're talking about is people being of a particular frequency. And there's a perfect frequency, and what we use with the NET system is resonance. And the resonance is there to compare an individual's human body field with what we would call the ideal human body field. And that's where we know where the distortions are, is with that comparison. And so we can use what we have, which is either imprinted information, or the Me Health, which puts energy into the blockages, to help the body's own inherent healing systems go back to a state of homeostasis. What we're dealing with, though, are long-term issues typically. So children are the easiest to treat because we're not dealing with long-term issues. They're corrected, no problem. But with people like myself who are now, I'm 43, when I started doing this, I was 37, and, I had a crazy childhood, crazy relationship, and was working on correcting that, and luckily had come into it with more knowledge about how the system works. But ultimately, to me, as a researcher, I want to see the results. And not only did I see the results, but people that were doing it in my, as far as my colleagues, we were all experiencing bombastic, dynamic changes. And we knew that it was something that was ahead of its time and that everybody needed, basically, because I was stuck, basically, and so were a lot of my friends. And that's what those emotional oscillators, tape loops do, is because with the certain traumas and shocks that you've been through, certain ones you do need basically as much help as you possibly can to get past and put into perspective. And that's what this really is helping with, is to create new patterns of thought, create new patterns and habits. And that basically also ends up helping health-wise, because it's literally us getting in the way of our body's own innate ability to heal itself.
What does this look like therapeutically, or actually like hands-on? Everything you're saying makes theoretical sense. It's awesome stuff, and I totally love it. But what is a therapy session like?
Well, it's wonderful because for people that don't really understand it, like my husband, for example, he was just really thrown into this wanting to be healthier, not quite understanding it. And same thing with a lot of my clients, where they're just at the end, they don't know what else to do a lot of times. And it may be something small like energy levels, sleep, or weight loss, or just something, whatever their personal issue is. And whenever it's addressed via the scan, because we do a hand scan,
what does that mean?
Basically that tells us exactly what to do as far as recommendations with the Me Health and then the Nest Pharmaceutical drops. And
Virginia, hang on a second. What is a scan? You said you keep saying scan, like a hand scan. What is a scan exactly?
Basically, we have a scanner, and it's wonderful because we have clients that can be bedridden or either in another state, and they are able to upload the software onto their own computers and do scans from there, so that if it's too much of a distance or their health is of major concern, then they can do an emergency scan from home, or they can just do their own treatment and really take their health into their own hands, which is another reason why I love this system and working with it, because it really thinks about how to make this available and doable for a lot of people.
What are they scanning for? What are they looking for?
They're basically using the resonance of the human body field in comparison with the perfect body field. Gotcha. They're looking at a differential between what's perfect health and what you're showing up, and then they adjust it. They adjust it with the drops. What's the deal with the drops? We only have about a minute. But tell me about those drops. Is that the key therapeutic element? Yes. And what it does is those are information imprinted drops. So basically, it's on water. They're using water as the conduit, along with a little bit of minerals for absorption in the body, so that your body really retains the corrective information. And it's really working with traditional Chinese medicine. And so we're correcting pathways. We're correcting energy storage tanks in the body, so that the body has the energy to heal and detoxify itself and do what it's naturally supposed to do.
How does it differ from homeopathy?
Well, basically, homeopathy is diluted bits of herbs and things that are, being exposed to the body. And what this is very different because it's imprinted information on water. And so we're using that to correct the long-term issues.
Got it. Well, homeopathy is
for
working
yourself, which is really great too, because you can take those every day at home on your own.
Homeopathy works that way, except they use herbs and you're using information. And this is very fascinating. I wish I had more time to talk about this. But how does somebody, if there's somebody out there who wants to use the NES system or apply some of these NES principles, what do you suggest? How do they get going?
Basically, you want to go on neshelp.com, and it will lead you to a practitioner that's near you, and you can set it up to have a scan done, or they'll get you in touch with a practitioner. But you can also contact me. I mean, I'm happy to help with anyone that needs further information or wants to get started. And like I said, I can treat anyone from anywhere because of the system's availability with the purchase of a scanner.
How do they get a hold of you, Virginia?
My cell phone would be 917-906. 713-906-6474. You can text me at that number, and I'm happy to get back with you at best time. And then I wish we could spend so much more time talking because it's very fascinating
really
stuff. Fun.
It's very fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for being on, Virginia. Thank you for your good work, and be well and stay strong in this crazy time. Appreciate it. We'll talk again soon. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. That was Virginia Landmester talking about NES, which is really cool stuff. You want to check out the book. It's not necessarily about NES, but it's really a cool book. Decoding the Human Body Field. Fraser, Fraser, and Massey, Massey. Thanks for listening to The Bright Side. Have a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll talk to you later. Bye for now.